Nathaniel Hayes stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights blur through the rain. At 34, he had built a tech empire worth billions. But tonight, none of that mattered. The lawyer's words echoed in his mind like a death sentence. "You have exactly 30 days to marry, Mr. Hayes. If you remain single past your 35th birthday, the entire Hayes family fortune goes to charity. Your grandfather's will is ironclad." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. The old man had always been controlling, but this felt like revenge from beyond the grave. How could he find a wife in 30 days when he had spent the last decade avoiding any serious relationship? His phone buzzed with another message from his assistant. 3 more gold diggers called today. The news about your inheritance requirement leaked to the press. Perfect. Now every fortune hunter in the city would be throwing themselves at him. The unexpected conversation 3 floors below, Carmen Silva quietly cleaned the guest bathrooms, her mind racing with worry. Her 8-year-old daughter, Sophia, had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition that required surgery costing $200,000, even with insurance. The family portion was crushing. She had worked for the Hayes family for 2 years, invisible to the billionaire who barely acknowledged her presence. Carmen preferred it that way. Rich men like Nathaniel Hayes lived in a different world, one where people like her only existed to serve. As she finished cleaning, her phone rang. "The hospital billing department again, Mrs. Silva. We need to discuss payment arrangements for Sophia's surgery. The procedure cannot wait much longer." Carmen's voice cracked. "Please, I just need more time. I'm working extra shifts, selling everything. I understand, but we need a commitment. Perhaps you could take out a loan." "No bank will give me that kind of money. I clean houses for a living." Tears streamed down her face. "She's just a little girl. There has to be something." Carmen didn't notice Nathaniel standing in the hallway, having returned early from his meeting. "I'd come downstairs for coffee and overheard every word. The proposition the next morning." Carmen arrived at work with red-rimmed eyes. She had spent the night researching every possible option, from crowdfunding to medical assistance programs. Nothing would work fast enough. "Carmen?" She jumped, startled by Nathaniel's voice. He never spoke to her directly. "Yes, Mr. Hayes. I need to speak." "With you privately?" "My office." Carmen's heart pounded. Had she done something wrong? Was he firing her because he overheard her personal call? Nathaniel's office was intimidating, with its mahogany desk and wall of awards. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, wrapping her cleaning apron nervously around her hands. "I understand your daughter needs surgery," he said without preamble. Carmen's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm sorry you heard that call, sir. My personal problems won't interfere with my work, I promise." "How much do you need?" The question caught her off guard. "Excuse me." "The surgery hospital bills. Recovery costs. Everything." "What's the total amount?" Carmen stared at him in confusion. "I don't understand why you're asking." Nathaniel leaned forward. "Because I have a proposal that could solve both our problems." He explained his inheritance situation, watching her eyes widen with each detail. When he finished, the room fell silent, except for the ticking of his grandfather's antique clock. "You want me to marry you?" Carmen whispered. "For 6 months. Purely business. You'll receive $300,000 upfront for your daughter's medical expenses, plus another $200,000 when our marriage ends. All you have to do is play the role of my wife in public." Carmen sank into the chair, overwhelmed. "This is crazy." "Is it crazier than watching your daughter suffer because you can't afford to save her?" The words stung because they were true. Carmen looked at this man she barely knew, this billionaire who could solve her biggest problem with what amounted to pocket change for him. What exactly would this marriage involve? The rules of engagement. Nathaniel pulled out a folder thick with legal documents. "My lawyers have prepared a comprehensive agreement. You'll move into the penthouse guest suite. We'll attend social functions together, family gatherings, business events. To the outside world, we're a happily married couple." Through pages of legal language, and privately, you maintain separate lives. "You have your space, I have mine. No personal involvement beyond what's necessary for appearances." "What about your family? Won't they be suspicious about a sudden marriage?" "My parents live in Europe. My sister will be thrilled I'm finally settling down. For friends and business. Associates love at first sight makes for a romantic story. Carmen thought about Sophia, currently staying with her grandmother while Carmen worked. The little girl had been asking why Mommy cried so much lately. I need time to think. Carmen. Nathaniel's voice was gentler now. I know this is overwhelming. But your daughter's surgery is scheduled for next week. The hospital won't wait. She closed her eyes, weighing an impossible decision. To marry a stranger or watch her daughter's condition worsen. If I agree, what happens if one of us wants out early? The contract includes specific terms for early termination. You'd still receive partial payment enough to cover your daughter's medical needs. Carmen stood up, pacing to the window. Central Park stretched out below, full of families enjoying the morning sunshine. Somewhere across town, Sophia was waiting. For her mommy to find a miracle. I have conditions, she said finally. Name them. Sophia comes first. Always. If she needs me, marriage or no marriage, I go to her. Agreed. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. I'm a housekeeper from Queens, not some socialite. That's actually perfect. The press will love the Cinderella story. Carmen turned to face him. When this is over, we go back to our separate lives. No complications. Nathaniel nodded, though something flickered in his eyes. No complications. The leap of faith that evening, Carmen sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by medical bills and legal documents. Sophia was asleep in the next room, her breathing slightly. Labored from her condition, Carmen's mother called from Puerto Rico. Mia, you sound stressed. How is Sophia? The surgery is next week, Mommy. Everything will be fine. But everything wouldn't be fine, not unless Carmen signed the papers sitting on her kitchen table. She thought about Nathaniel Hayes, this mysterious billionaire who barely seemed to notice her existence until yesterday. What kind of man was he really? Could she trust him? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Carmen, this is Nathaniel. I wanted you to know that regardless of your decision, I've already contacted the hospital to ensure Sophia's surgery proceeds as scheduled. Some things are more important than business contracts. Carmen stared at the message, tears forming in her eyes. He had already paid for Sophia's surgery, with no guarantee she would agree to his proposal. She picked up a pen and signed the marriage contract. The next morning, Nathaniel Hayes and Carmen Silva would become husband and wife in a simple courthouse ceremony. What neither of them knew was that this business arrangement would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and the walls they had built around their hearts. As Carmen sealed the signed documents in an envelope, she whispered, a prayer to whatever forces governed impossible situations. In 30 days, she would be married to one of the most powerful men in America. The contract was signed. The deal was struck. But some agreements once made have a way of writing their own endings. The courthouse ceremony felt surreal to Carmen as she stood beside Nathaniel in a simple, cream dress she had borrowed from her neighbor. He wore an expensive navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The judge's words seemed to echo from a distance as they exchanged rings that felt foreign on their fingers. You may kiss the bride, the judge announced. Nathaniel hesitated for just a moment before giving Carmen a brief, formal kiss on her cheek. To any observer, it might have seemed sweet and nervous. Only they knew the truth. Congratulations, Mrs. Hayes, he whispered as they signed the certificate. Mrs. Hayes. Carmen Silva was now Carmen Hayes, at least on paper, moving into his world. Penthouse guest suite was larger than Carmen's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city, and the bathroom alone was bigger than Sophia's bedroom. Carmen felt like an intruder in this world of marble and crystal. The staff has been informed that you're my wife now, Nathaniel explained as he showed her around. They'll treat you accordingly. Carmen noticed how the other employees looked at her differently now. Yesterday she was Invisible Carmen, the housekeeper. Today she was Mrs. Hayes, the billionaire's mysterious new bride. Sophia arrived that afternoon after her successful surgery, still weak but smiling. Nathaniel had arranged for a private nurse and converted one of the spare bedrooms into a recovery room complete with every comfort a little girl could want. Mommy, is this really our new house? Sophia asked in wonder. looking at the enormous teddy bear Nathaniel had left for her. For a little while, mi amor, Carmen replied, not knowing how to explain the complicated truth. Their first test came 3 days later at a charity gala for children's hospitals. Carmen stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Nathaniel had sent stylists who transformed her into someone who belonged in his world, at least on the surface. The emerald green gown hugged her figure perfectly, and professional makeup highlighted features she had never considered beautiful. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than her car completed the look. "Looks stunning," Nathaniel said when she emerged from her room. For a moment, something genuine flickered in his eyes before the business mask returned. The gala was overwhelming. Carmen found herself shaking hands with celebrities, politicians, and business moguls whose names she recognized from news headlines. Everyone wanted to meet Nathaniel's mysterious new wife. "So romantic how you two met," gushed Mrs. Patterson, a society matron dripping in jewels. "Love at first sight, I heard?" Carmen glanced at Nathaniel, who smoothly took over. "Sometimes you just know when you've found the right person." His hand found hers, squeezing gently. To everyone watching, it looked like an affectionate gesture. Carmen felt the calluses on his fingers and wondered what kind of work a billionaire did that left such marks. Unexpected moments as weeks passed. Cracks began to appear in their professional arrangement. Carmen discovered that Nathaniel worked 18-hour days, rarely eating proper meals. She started leaving sandwiches outside his office door. It's the same way she cared for Sophia when she was sick. One evening, she found him asleep at his desk, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. Without thinking, she draped a blanket over his shoulders. He stirred slightly, murmuring thank you without opening his eyes. Nathaniel, meanwhile, noticed how Carmen sang Spanish lullabies to Sophia every night, her voice carrying through the penthouse. He found himself staying in his office later, just to hear those gentle melodies. He also observed how she helped the household staff with their own problems, translating documents for Maria the cook, helping James the doorman with his citizenship paperwork. "Your wife is very kind," Maria told him one morning. "She treats us like family, not servants." The business dinner there. Biggest test came when Nathaniel's parents unexpectedly returned from Europe for an important business dinner. Richard and Eleanor Hayes were old money aristocrats who had never approved of their son's self-made billions, preferring inherited wealth to earn success. "So, Carmen," Eleanor said over the appetizer course, her tone sharp as crystal, "Nathaniel tells us you worked as a housekeeper before your marriage." The table fell silent. Carmen felt every eye on her, waiting to see if she would crumble under the pressure. "Yes, Mrs. Hayes. I cleaned houses to support my daughter after her father died." "How tragic," Eleanor continued. "And now you're married to our son, after knowing him for what, a few weeks?" Carmen's temper flared. She had dealt with condescending wealthy women before, but never while pretending to be one herself. "I understand your concern," Carmen replied evenly. "If I had a son, I would want to make sure any woman he chose loved him for who he is, not what he has." Nathaniel watched this exchange with growing admiration. Carmen held her ground without backing down or losing her composure. "And do you?" Richard Hayes asked. "Love our son for who he is?" Carmen looked at Nathaniel, something shifting in her chest as she met his eyes. "Your son is the most honorable man I've ever met. He saved my daughter's life without asking for anything in return. He works harder than anyone I know, cares about his employees, and despite what people might think, he earned every bit of his success through determination and intelligence." The words came from somewhere deeper than the contract they had signed. Carmen realized with a start that she meant every word. Growing closer after his parents left, Nathaniel found Carmen on the terrace looking out over the city lights. "Thank you for defending me tonight," he said, joining her at the railing. "I meant what I said." Even the part about me being honorable? There was something vulnerable in his voice. Carmen turned to study his profile in the moonlight, especially that part. They stood in comfortable silence, the sounds of the city far below. For the first time since their marriage began, the space between them felt smaller. "Can I ask you something?" Carmen said. "What happened to your hands?" "You have Calluses that don't match your lifestyle. Nathaniel looked down at his hands, surprised by her observation. I restore vintage cars in my spare time. It's my escape from all this. He gestured toward the penthouse. Carmen smiled. I would never have guessed that. There's a lot you don't know about me. We have time, she said, then caught herself. They had time until the contract ended, but what happened after that? The shift as their third month together progressed. The lines between pretending and reality began to blur. Nathaniel started coming home earlier, joining Carmen and Sophia for dinner. He taught Sophia card games and helped with her homework, his face lighting up at her laughter. Carmen found herself looking forward to their morning coffee conversations, when Nathaniel would share stories about his business challenges and she would offer perspective from her different world. One evening, Sophia fell asleep between them while watching a movie. As Nathaniel carefully carried the little girl to her room, Carmen felt her heart skip. This man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions was gentle as silk with her daughter. She's lucky to have you as a mother, he said when he returned. She's lucky to have you in her life too, even if it's temporary. The word temporary hung heavy between them. Their contract had 3 months remaining, but neither wanted to acknowledge what that meant. As part 2 drew to a close, Carmen realized the most dangerous thing possible had happened. She was falling in love with her fake husband, and she suspected he might be feeling the same way. But with money, contracts, and different worlds between them, could anything real survive? When the pretending ended 2 weeks before their contract was set to expire, everything changed. Carmen was organizing Nathaniel's home office when she discovered a folder labeled with her name. Inside were photographs, news articles, and what looked like a private investigator's report dating back 2 years. Her hands trembled as she read the documents. Nathaniel had been watching her long before he ever had offered the marriage contract. He knew about Sophia's condition months in advance, knew about her financial struggles, even knew her work schedule and daily routines. The office door opened behind her. Carmen, I can explain. Nathaniel's voice was tight with panic. She turned around, holding the folder like evidence of a crime. Explain what? That you've been stalking me for 2 years? That this whole marriage was planned? It's not what you think. And what is it, Nathaniel? Because it looks like you researched me like a business acquisition. Ran his hands through his hair, the composed billionaire facade crumbling. I first saw you at the hospital 18 months ago. You were in the children's ward with Sophia, reading to her while she had tests done. You were so gentle, so loving, even though you were clearly terrified. Carmen stared at him. You were at the hospital. My foundation donates heavily to children's medical programs. I was there for a board meeting. Nathaniel moved closer, his voice desperate. I couldn't stop thinking about you after that day. I had my assistant find out who you were. So you hired me as your housekeeper. No, that was coincidence. When I saw your name on the employment applications, I couldn't believe it. Having you in my home, even just cleaning, felt like a gift I didn't deserve. Carmen's mind reeled. The marriage contract, the inheritance deadline, was any of that real? The inheritance is real, the timing was real, but Carmen, I would have helped Sophia regardless. I was already planning to anonymously pay for her surgery before I ever thought of the marriage arrangement. Then why? Her voice broke. Why the elaborate charade? Nathaniel sat down heavily in his desk chair, looking older than his 35 years. Because I'm a coward. I'm brilliant with business deals and million-dollar negotiations, but I had no idea how to talk to a woman I was falling in love with. Words hung in the air between them. Carmen felt her anger warring with something deeper, more dangerous. You don't fall in love with housekeepers. You've watched from a distance, Nathaniel. You fall in love with fantasy. That's where you're wrong. He stood up, moving closer. I fell in love with the way you sing to Sophia when you think no one is listening. I fell in love with how you help Maria with her English homework after your shift ends. I fell in love with your strength, your kindness, your fierce protection of everyone you care about. Carmen's eyes filled with tears, but you manipulated everything. How can I trust anything between us is real? Because the way I feel when you smile at me across the breakfast table is real. The way my heart stops when you laugh at Sophia's jokes is real. The way I lie awake at night wishing this marriage was more than a contract is real. She wanted to believe him, wanted to throw herself into his arms and forgive everything. But trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. "I need time to think," she whispered. "Carmen, please." I said I need time. The decision that night, Carmen walked the city streets until dawn, her mind churning with everything she had learned. Sophia was safe, healthy, and happy. The marriage contract would end in 2 weeks, and she would have enough money to start a new life anywhere she chose. But leaving felt like tearing her heart in half. She found herself at the small church where she had prayed desperately for Sophia's healing just months earlier. The same elderly priest was there, preparing for morning mass. "You look troubled, my child," Father Miguel said in Spanish. Carmen poured out the whole story. This impossible situation of love built on deception and contracts built on genuine need. "The question is not whether he manipulated the circumstances," the priest said gently. "The question is whether his love for you is real now, and whether yours is real for him." "How can I know for sure? Love requires a leap of faith, always. The only difference here is that you know the risks up front." Confrontation. Carmen returned to the penthouse to find Nathaniel in his workshop, violently dismantling an engine with more force than necessary. His knuckles were bleeding from scraping them against metal. "You're going to hurt yourself," she said from the doorway. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. "I've already hurt what matters most." Carmen entered the workshop, this space that revealed so much about the man behind the billionaire image. Tools hung in precise order, but current projects showed the passionate, hands-on person he became when no one was watching. "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "Show me who you really are when you're not trying to manage outcomes or control situations." Nathaniel wiped his hands on a rag, studying her face. "I don't know how. Start with the truth. All of it." She took a shaky breath. "I've been alone my entire life. My parents were never around. I had no real friends, just business associates. Building my company was the only thing I knew how to do successfully." Carmen sat down on a workbench, listening. "When I saw you with Sophia that day, you looked like everything I never knew I wanted. A family, real love, someone who chose to be there, not because of money or status, but you used money to get me there anyway. I did. I'll regret that for the rest of my life." His voice cracked. "I was so afraid you would never choose someone like me without incentive that I created the incentive myself." Carmen was quiet for a long moment. "What happens now?" "The contract expires in 12 days. You take the money, start your new life with Sophia. I go back to being alone. But at least I'll know I saved the 2 people who matter most to me. And if I wanted to stay," Nathaniel's head snapped up. "What? If I wanted to stay? Not because of money or contracts, but because somewhere in the middle of this mess, I fell in love with you too." The new beginning hope flickered in Nathaniel's eyes, quickly replaced by caution. "Carmen, you don't owe me anything. I manipulated this situation. Stop." She stood up, moving closer. "You were wrong to investigate me, wrong to engineer this whole arrangement, but you were also right about one thing."
"What's that?"
"I never would have given you a chance otherwise. Not because of who you are, but because I would never have believed someone like you could genuinely care about someone like me." Nathaniel reached out tentatively, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. "I more than care about you. I love you, Carmen. Not the idea of you, not the fantasy, but you. Your stubbornness, your fierce independence, the way you make the best coffee. In Manhattan, how you've made this sterile penthouse feel like a home." Carmen leaned into his touch. "I love you too. The real you who works with his hands and worries about his employees and reads bedtime stories to my daughter like she's his own. What are you saying?" "I'm saying let's tear up the contract and start over. No money, no timelines, no conditions. Just 2 people figuring out if they can build something real together." 6 months later, the real wedding, the small ceremony in Central Park, was nothing like their courthouse marriage. Sophia served as flower girl, scattering rose petals while wearing a princess dress that made her giggle with joy. Carmen's mother flew in from Puerto Rico, crying happy tears as she watched her daughter marry for love. This time, when the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Nathaniel's kiss was passionate, real, and filled with the promise of forever. Their vows were simple but heartfelt. Carmen promised to love him through good deals and bad, in sickness and health, whether he was a billionaire or a mechanic. Nathaniel promised to never manipulate or control their relationship again, to trust in their love even when business sense said otherwise. "I love you, Mrs. Hayes," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too, Mr. Hayes." The perfect ending. 1 year later, they renewed their vows on the anniversary of their real wedding. This time, Sophia wasn't the only child running around the celebration. Carmen was 6 months pregnant with twins. "Any regrets about marrying your fake wife for real?" Carmen asked as they danced under the stars. Nathaniel spun her carefully, mindful of her growing belly, that I waited so long to find the courage to love you the right way. We found our way eventually. We did. He kissed her forehead, and this time, it's forever. As fireworks lit up the Manhattan skyline, Carmen realized that sometimes the most impossible situations lead to the most beautiful endings. Their love story had started with a contract, but it would end with a lifetime of choosing each other, again and again. Sophia ran up to them, now 9 years old, and excited about becoming a big sister. "Mommy, Nathaniel, look at the pretty lights." Scooped her up, this little girl who had brought them together without knowing it. "What do you think, princess? Should we make a wish?" "I don't need to wish," Sophia declared seriously. "I already have everything I wanted. A family." Carmen's eyes filled with happy tears as she looked at her husband and daughter, her hand resting on the babies growing inside her. Sometimes dreams came true in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes the best love stories began with the most impossible contracts. Their 6-month marriage deal had ended exactly as planned. Their real love story was just beginning.